Good. Thank you. I want to thank you all for coming out. Again, my name is Big South, AKA the Mayor of Southwest. Yes. My story began August 2005. I was on extended vacation. And before I went on that extended vacation, I was living in a luxury apartment with a sight of the White House, the Monument, and 295. Prior to that, I loved my apartment. I can actually go in my apartment when I want to. I had my key. I didn't have to knock on the door. And so after my extended vacation, my living arrangements changed. It was a little disgruntled, but it was manageable. I was staying with 3 family members. We know how it can be when you're staying with someone else and you don't have a key. But I had a very loving little sister who owned a home with her husband and also her 8-year-old son. Wow. It seems like every time I get off from work, this little nephew of mine just runs downstairs because my room is located in the basement. Those basement in housing, they have a lower window, fire code violations. See, I'm used to a big window. But I told you it was manageable. So my nephew used to run downstairs. Every time I get off from work, he'd run down there and turn on the TV. And so one day I had to stop him. I said, son, this is your house. I'm just here temporarily. I forgot to tell you, though, the reason why I was at my sister's house was because I was on parole. And my parole officer decided that I had to live with a family member before I was actually allowed to go search for an apartment for myself. And those are some of the conditions when women and men coming home from prison, you have to stay either with a family member or in a halfway house. I was actually in a halfway house for at least a month, and I was doing so good, they put me on home confinement. Home confinement is that you can stay with a loved one instead of staying in a halfway house. Because a lot of times, I didn't agree with all the, because we staying in rooms. In a halfway house, it's like 6 guys in one room. And a lot of us ain't thinking the same way. Because some of us still on the streets. I wanted change. So I got accepted in the home confinement. So I was staying with my sister. But I also was still paying 25%. Back when I was in the halfway house, you had to pay 25% of your paycheck to the halfway house. And you had a lot of people saying, well, I'm not paying that. But I was used to paying bills before I got incarcerated. So the 25% didn't make a difference to me. I wanted my freedom. I wanted my own place. But I was staying at my sister's house, and she made an agreement where I can just save my money to put a down payment on my own apartment. And so for 6 months, I scrapped it out. And like I was talking about my nephew, I used to set him down and say, I'm only here temporarily. But sometimes, I come home from working at night and the screen door is locked. And you can imagine, trying to get through a screen door, then another door. It was frustrating at times, but I understand it's better than waiting for the officer to unlock one of those prison doors. And so me and my PO used to get in it back and forth. I need to go look for me an apartment. And so one day he said, well, Paul, you can go ahead and look for an apartment. So I'm scrounging around the city, looking in the paper, looking for something that I can afford. And, I'm trying to get away from that hustling, bustling, and, I want something quiet, something luxury, something brand new. And I found this ideal location in Silver Spring. They had just built this brand new apartment building. And I went in there and got an application. They told me about the application fee. I filled it out and everything. So she said, I'll give you a call back once we, do all what we have to do. And so the young lady that I actually was talking to, her name was Oprah. Not the Winfrey you're thinking about. But I said to myself, if someone named their young lady Oprah, I got a chance. Right? Because, we know Oprah, she's a feel-good story. But when I went to go see Oprah, she said, I got some good news and I got some bad news, Paul. I said, Well, what's the good news? Well, your credit and everything checked out fine, but she said, the nature of your crime, because they did a background check to rent an apartment. And due to my background, I was a drug dealer. Not just any drug, it was marijuana. I was looking at 30 years in the federal prison for selling marijuana. So I pleaded out and took 8 years. I did 5.5 years in federal prison. You're talking about unjust. So I'm looking at myself nowadays where marijuana is smoked freely, right? They got these little places you can go buy marijuana in, and they was talking about giving me 30 years. So I struggle with that sometimes, and especially, it comes on the news when they first passed the law and some guy get caught with an ounce, and they actually put it in his property. And so when he got released, he went down to the police station. They gave him his ounce back. So I got feelings. So as I'm struggling with that, and we're talking to Oprah, so I asked Oprah a question. I said, if I had a murder beef, would you guys, and I had the credit and everything, would you guys rent to me? She said, sure. I said, wow. As I go back and forth trying to look for an apartment that will rent to me, I'm talking to my PO. He's a federal PO now. He's the feds. They don't have anything in place. And that's one of the things I said, I can work a job, I can get the credit, but I can't even get an apartment. What are you guys going to work on, guys that's coming home from the federal system about apartments? And they got drug beefs. He had no answer. So along comes a friend. She say, well, Paul, they got this program, this first-time homeowners program, and I'm in it. And they actually giving you money. But the only catch, you have to buy in D.C. I'm thinking to myself, yeah, right. No, that's a scam. Ain't nobody giving nobody no money. Months go past, and next thing you know, she's going to her classes and things like that, and she shows me a letter. She said, I've been accepted. I've been approved. So I'm reading the letter saying, well, you've been approved for $300,000, and the government gonna give you $77,000 or $80,000 towards that down payment, and you don't have to pay that $77,000 back until your 5th year in the home, and it's a 30-year loan with no interest. I said, wow. See, where I come from is seeing is believing, right? Seeing is believing. So when I saw that, I hopped on the next train going to Alabama Avenue to sign up for the HPAP program. But a lot of has to do with my time being spent in federal prison, where I had to take this program because I was a drug dealer. But in my past, I used to use drugs also. So they said, we got to get you some kind of help, some kind of treatment. So I went into this program, RDAP. And it's the only program I went to where they didn't target your drug use. It actually targeted your thinking, right? Because the thought is the cause of it all. So once I got focused in that, and I realized that, guess what? If I can pick up on these social skills, these cognitive self-thinking skills, right, I can make it out there. And so what happens is when I was going through the process of filling out with the first-time home buyers program, all those skills came in handy, right? When you're dealing with the bankers, you're dealing with case managers, dealing with my PO, these are all social skills that I have in my belt. Because I know if I'm making more money than the PO, he might feel some type of way, right? And I got to understand that because there's a process. And I knew I had to have patience, perseverance, and consistency. And so when I was going through that, with that process of buying my first home, all those tools came in handy. I know it's not an easy process because I refer a lot of people and they just give up. But I wasn't the one that was going to give up. And so, I'm going back and forth, and, the PO got to be involved because he got to make sure that the money ain't come from here. I had to save the money up, and everything worked out fine. And so one of the mistakes I made is I used one of my friends as a realtor, right? And so he didn't have a car. So that was one red flag, right? Then we get to the place, he don't even know the combination to the lockbox. But I'm trying to stay true to my friends, right? And so I told myself, well, let me try another realtor. And I found this one guy, and he was right on time. We went to look over this place over by Deanwood. They haven't built Deanwood Rec Center. It's still bricks. They building that Deanwood Rec Center, and they got a condo over there, you know, because you know when you get approved. So I got approved for like $215. I'm just out working. I'm a personal trainer. I'm happy. But the first place I went was down Southwest, River Park. So when I was a kid, I used to stay in this high-rise, 1200 Delaware Avenue. I had the ideal apartment on the 8th floor. I can see everything. And I told myself as a kid, once I get old, I'm going to move over there. So I went over there to look at a condo. I can afford the condo, but the condo fee was like $700. I said, nah, I don't want that. So that was one dream that was dashed. But we found a place, and the realtor got with me, and we found a nice place, and almost a year later, I received my keys, and 14 years later, I'm still in that same place, same plan, the same mortgage, which is like not even $900. And so I pretty much, share my stories with others, because I know for me, I couldn't imagine that full circle I've been around in the last 17 years. Because today, I work in the Department of Corrections. Wow. So a lot of my friends, I talk to them daily. And each and one of the women or the men that get released, you can bet I give them an HPAP application. I tell them about first-time homeowners program. And how ironic it is that the first-time homeowners program is right down the street, 2 blocks, 1800 Martin Luther King Avenue, right on the corner, right? And so in closing, it's like the rental door closed, but the home ownership door opened wide open for me. Thank you.